Hello! Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I invite you to a video tutorial on making miniature bead figurines. In this video we will go over the brick stitch technique, the materials needed to create a beadwork piece, and how to make it as beautiful as possible. As an example, I will show you a few miniatures and how they look when finished. They are soft and pleasant to the touch, and the process of creating them is a kind of meditation and relaxation. But at the beginning it might be a bit challenging, but I will try to make this process as simple as possible for you. You can find the kits for making such miniatures via the link under the video. The kit includes all the necessary materials, namely a beading mat, Miyuki Delica size 11 Japanese beads, a printed pattern with all the useful information about sizes and the color legend, a spool of thread 75 meters, and 3 or 4 needles in the set. Additionally, you will need to find small-sized scissors, as they are not included in the kit. Optionally, you might also find a pencil for marking and a ruler. For convenience, the kit includes printed small letters to place on the beading mat next to different bead colors. That's all you need today, so let's get started! The first thing we will start with in our detailed introduction is the pattern. On the first page you can see a picture of how our future beadwork will look. On the second page there is useful information about the beading technique, helpful tips and information about discounts. But the most important part is the information about our pattern, its width, length, number of rows, colors and beads that will be used. The next page is the bead legend. Here you will find the color numbers, names to be used, their letters designations and the exact quantities. Using this page we arrange the beads in small piles on our mat and place the letter designation next to them. You should also review the beads that will be used in your piece. If you come across uneven, smaller, larger or defective beads, do not use them. This will greatly simplify the beading process in the future. And the last page is the main pattern that we will be working on. To start our beading, we need to find the widest part of our pattern. We will first bead one half of our leaf and then the other. Here we can see that the leaf's shape is quite smooth, so the beading will be easy. For example, here's another pattern with a cactus, where we have many bulging and protruding parts. This will extend the beading time, but the principle is exactly the same. It will just take more time. We need to find the widest part and choose the direction in which we will bead, and then sequentially at each part of the beadwork pattern. Let's return to the leaf. We have already marked out first row and will start beading from it. Now we need the thread. If the piece is colorful and closer to light colors, it's better to use white thread. If it has more dark colors, use black thread. Cut a fairly long piece of thread at the beginning, because we won't use half of it right now. But remember, the longer the thread, the more difficult the beading process. The shorter the thread, the more knots and additions of new thread you'll have to make. In the video I chose the long thread option. Its length will vary greatly depending on the pattern. Here, for example, I cut 4 elbow lengths. I thread one end through the needle. The kit includes different types of needles, size 11 and 12. This is so you can choose the one that's most comfortable for you. After threading one end, weaving out the thread as shown in the video. Do not tie any knots. Now, following our pattern in the selected row, we start threading the beads using the letter designation. In the video we can see that the first color marked with E requires 4 beads, followed by the color marked B with 3 beads. We continue like this until we have threaded all beads from the first row. Keep an eye on the end of your thread so that the beads don't fall off and get lost. After you've threaded the entire row, check for accuracy. Now slide your beads to about the middle of your thread. Hold the beads as shown on the screen and use the needle to pass through the second to last bead you threaded from the far side of the needle. Pull the thread through the hole and tighten it. Your bead should flip to the other side. Repeat this with each bead, constantly checking the tension and adjusting the beads with your fingers so they sit as shown on the screen. Do this with each bead until you finish the entire row. Remember to release the main beadwork you are holding in your hands during the tightening so it can rotate and settle on the correct side. Beading the first rows is the hardest part of miniature beading, so if you get through this, it will be much easier from here on. After you have finished beading the row in this way, compare it with the one shown in the video. On the left side, you will see the ideal version with very closely positioned beads. On the right side, there is also an acceptable version, where the beads are not tightly pulled together. To avoid getting confused with the pattern, I recommend marking the beads you have already beaded with a pencil by crossing them out. Next, we choose the direction in which we will move. I choose to go upward. Look at the pattern to see where our working thread and needle are currently located and start beading in that direction. All subsequent rows will be beaded one bead at a time. In the pattern, our next bead is a green one. We take it onto the needle and pass the needle from beneath the thread that is between the beads. Gently catch the thread and pass the needle through from below, as shown in the video. Pull the entire thread through and pull the bead tight. Next, we pass the needle back through our bead from below upwards and gently tighten it, not too much. A small woven triangle should form. Mark it as beaded on the pattern and move on to the next bead in the row. The next bead should be a white one. Repeat the same steps. The following video shows the brick stitch technique without commentary, so you can take a closer look at the process. Continue beading the row following the pattern. After you have almost finished the row, you may see in the pattern that one bead, the last one, seems to stick out beyond the pattern. There is no place to attach it. Here we do it a bit differently. Thread it onto the needle and pass the needle through the previous spot where you already passed when attaching the previous bead. It is shown in detail in the video how to do this best. Next, we move on to the next row upwards, the third row. Here, the situation is similar. Again, one bead in the pattern seems to stick out beyond the pattern and beading area. To attach it, we need to make 2 beads onto the needle at once, following the pattern. The first bead on the edge and the second one that goes in the opposite direction of our third row. In this case, these are 2 identical green beads. We make a regular brick stitch but with 2 beads. Return to the bead that is closer to the needle. Tighten the thread, and as we can see, the beads are positioned as needle according to the pattern. Mark our beaded beads and continue following the pattern for our third row. Here is another video example of similar situation. After we have finished beading the third row, we start the fourth. Here we have the opposite situation. The bead is deeper in our pattern. There are several ways to continue beading from here. One option is to avoid making any additional needle movements and simply turn the beadwork downwards and continue beading the next row. However, then on the side of the beadwork, we will have a slightly step from the thread, which will be visible from the side of our leaf. I recommend that you learn another option right away. It is more complex, but the result will be neater. One of the options is to string 2 beads according to our pattern and pass the needle not under the first gap between the beads, but under the second one. After that, we return to our first bead and sew it in the usual way as shown in the video. Then we move to the second bead, but pass the needle deeper, reaching the previous row, and then return the needle back through another bead as shown in the video. This option is more difficult, but it helps us avoid excess thread visible on the side of our beadwork. Next, we see another example of an unusual situation on the weaving pattern, where our next row starts not where our needle is located. To achieve this, we need to maneuver zigzag among the already woven beads and pull the thread through the necessary place. Specifically, this means pulling the thread through the bead located between the first 2 beads in the next row, as shown in the video. After this, we pick up 2 beads at once and sew them into place using the stitch closest to the center of the pattern from the bead where our thread is attached. This process is shown in detail in the video. Then we sew the first bead and return back using the method we already learned earlier. We mark the sewn beads on the pattern and continue moving forward in the usual manner. The next situation to consider is when we need to extend the row by several or more beads. While this specific example isn't in this pattern, it exists in others. This technique is particularly useful for weaving flower patterns on cactus. After completing the row, you would take another bead and attach it to the last one. If only one bead is needed, we immediately return back. If more are needed, we take the next bead and continue attaching it until necessary. For added strength, you can pass the thread back and forth one more time. This is a way to extend a row. Once we finish weaving the first side, we can start weaving the other side. To do this, we use the leftover piece of thread from the very beginning. Thread it through the needle and begin moving according to the weaving diagram, now working downwards and away from the center of the pattern. What to do if the thread runs out? You need to leave approximately this length of thread, no less. An example is shown in the video. It will also be better if you replace the thread in the middle of weaving the row, rather than at the end. This way, the place of change will be less noticeable. Return with the needle into the previously woven bead, then move within the already woven part of our pattern. We use different directions of movement, threading the thread between the beads inside. Before cutting the thread, it's important to make one or several knots for additional strength. I always try to make these knots next to a bead of a similar color as the thread. In this example, you can see that the knot is hardly visible against the background of the white beads. Also, hide the knot inside the bead rather than between them. You can see an example on the screen. After this, cut the thread close to the beadwork. How to add a new thread? Here we do everything the same but in reverse. Thread the new thread onto the needle and hide it within the beadwork. Tie a knot holding onto the end that's out. Then, move towards where you need to continue weaving the row. Try not to pass the thread frequently through the places where you hit the previous thread end. The direction is random, back and forth. After these movements, bring the thread out to the right place and continue weaving the row. That's all you need to know for bead miniature weaving. You can use them as they are or get creative. Sew them onto clothes, bags or backpacks. Attach chains and make pendants or earrings. To make them less movable, you can sew them onto a felt base. There are plenty of ways to use them. You can purchase patterns for miniatures or weaving kits through the link provided in the video description. Thank you very much for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel to not miss new videos. You can also find me on Instagram and other social media platforms. All the links are in the video description. See you next time. Bye bye.